As NATO ends its 13-year-long mission in Afghanistan, the Taliban stepping up attacks. 10 local soldiers have been killed in bomb blasts in recent days. Gayane Chichakyan reports next on the challenges ahead then for a post-NATO Afghanistan.
Record high drug production has turned Afghanistan into a narco-criminal state. The U.S. Special Inspector General for Afghanistan Reconstruction says it's likely to get worse after 2014, when the bulk of coalition troops leave the country.
All of the fragile gains we have made over the last 12 years on women's issues, health, education, rule of law and governance, are now, more than ever, in jeopardy of being wiped out by the narcotics trade.
The Inspector General has criticized U.S. leaders for not making counter-narcotics their top priority in Afghanistan. American and NATO officials hardly ever mention the rampant drug production in their speeches, instead presenting a rosier picture.
More Afghans have hope for their future, and so much of that is because of you.
Compared to the situation in 2001, 2002, Afghanistan and the world is safer because of what we have done in Afghanistan, our presence there.
Since the U.S. toppled the Taliban in 2002, opium production has tripled. The Taliban, which prior to the U.S. invasion had fought drugs, now derive a third of their income from opium sales, according to a UN Security Council report. The country accounts for 90% of the world's heroin market, making it a global security threat. Opium puppies in Afghanistan now cover a territory 12 times the size of Washington, D.C.
By every conceivable metric, we've failed. Production and cultivation are up, interdiction and eradication are down, financial support to the insurgency is up, and addiction and abuse are at unprecedented levels in Afghanistan.
The Inspector General report says the $7 billion that the U.S. spent to fight drug production in Afghanistan since 2002 have had no effect. But the U.S. has never set the goal of completely eradicating Afghanistan's opium poppy fields.
The report on the dramatic increase in Afghanistan's drug production flies in the face of statements about how the war in Afghanistan has made the world safer. Not only does the drug money foster corruption and insurgency in Afghanistan, it also funds international criminal networks. Not to mention, of course, the thousands of people across the world who die from heroin addiction every year. In Washington, I'm Gayane Chichakyan, RT.
Well, let's discuss the growing poppy production as well as the state that NATO troops are leaving Afghanistan in. Was cross live to Theo Thisser. He's a peace lobby. He's from the peace lobby group in Washington. Sorry about that. So slightly messed up your intro there, but delighted to have you on the programme nonetheless. Poppy production in Afghanistan is now, as we're hearing in that report there, at an all-time high. It must be extremely frustrating for everyone involved who've been trying to tramp this out, including America. Billions have been poured into this. It's still happening and getting worse. Why?
Yes, as you said, $7 billion has been poured into the drug war in Afghanistan, and it's been a massive failure. We've known this for many years, and it really boils down to underinvestment in developing Afghanistan in a very sustainable way, investing in the local economy. The poor farmers who are turning to the lucrative poppy production and the poppy trade have no choice but to do that because they have no other
Where's all that money gone that's been poured
living
into doing this? It should have been channeled to different and better purposes, you're saying then. Who was marshalling it? How could it have gone on so long like this and be so ineffective?
Well, I mean, report after report have pointed out the failure of the war on drugs. I mean, not only in Afghanistan, but also across the world, from Colombia to Mexico to places in Guatemala and the Caribbean. The war on drugs has been a massive failure because it's a wrong-headed approach. Rather than investing in the root causes of drug production and the drug demand in the West. And what they've instead done is militarized the war on drugs, and it's been a massive failure for us.
And are the Afghan forces ready to pick this up now or not? Are they it sounds like they're not in a good enough state to be able to tackle it anywhere near it.
Well, the U.S. officials continue to blame the Afghan government for the lack of, drug interdiction and eradication, but really what needs to happen is more investment in infrastructure, more jobs and economy, better investment in the economy for the poor Afghan farmer who has no choice but to turn to drug production. The capacity is there with local Afghan civil society to take on these efforts. The new government in Afghanistan is willing to do it, but is the West willing to invest beyond just militarized combat operations?
So,
the other side of this, of course, is addressing the... Sorry, go ahead.
No, carry on.
Well, the other side of this is, of course, addressing the demand for drugs in the West, particularly in Europe, here in America. This is the demand that is driving the drug market all over the world, and we need to address this. Essentially, an issue that is socio-political in nature has been militarized and has been used for other political means rather than actually addressing the root causes of the problem.
I hear what you're saying, demand, supply, etc. And one final thought then, briefly, if you can. NATO's saying that this long operation in Afghanistan has actually benefited Afghanistan. That's not what you've been telling me, but it's benefited security and the economy. You're totally disagreeing with that then, yeah?
Yes, I mean, bringing the combat operations to an end, withdrawing all forces from Afghanistan needs to be done in a very fast way. But again, that's not to abandon Afghanistan like we did in the late 80s. It's to reinvest in the Afghan people, in the economy, to provide jobs, to ensure that sustainable development happens in a holistic way.
Theo, thanks for your thoughts there. Theo Thisser from the Friends Committee on National Legislation, a peace lobby group in Washington. Let's get your title right there, sir, at the end at least. Thanks for being with us.